This story's right, this story's true. I would not tell lies to you like the promise.
Winyong koragana ngai na wala olimi yanange pono ba wi ngada je pono ba panda wara waraga yanange wala lo urige yanangare yanange juralo malngaringa urego uraga ngare juralo yanange malngaringa hingi ngada jum meeting sorry day. I stand here as a Bonobo woman, I'll just interpret. This I'm standing on Bonobo land. We're gonna have people coming up here and talking about how the government took our people away from our countries. Not only the young ones that were taken away, it was people who were taken off their land and brought into other people's land. But we've been married ourselves. We've been all married ourselves in different language groups. Today we stand as one, as families. Hear the stories, because some of you young people have never heard these stories before. But as Aboriginal people of the land, we survived. And that's the main thing that we have to say today. We're survivors, and we still will be surviving, and we will get on top. Thank you.
Today is a special day, and I'd like to open this meeting at being Marwa Chairman. And thank you, Ngalo, for that welcoming to country. Welcome everyone again. Today we honor Sorry Day and acknowledge that 20 years has now passed since the release of Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission, Bringing Them Home report. Australia has failed to act and acknowledge the responsibility towards the stolen generation and recognize the history of forcible removal as an act of crime. We can only begin to understand the depth of grief and suffering experienced at the time of removal for the victim and the effects that it had on their lives and families' lives. Together today, we will remember these families through their stories and pay respect of their courage and strength as they live with hurt and pain of broken families. So today we support you in what may be a sad journey of memories, but you have a lot of love and of your families around you, and hope and possibility of bringing families together once again in the future. So that's one of the speeches for today and opening of today's meeting. And like I said, it's one of the special day for Stolen Generation. And I also do, we got a history of Stolen Generation from my family. My dad was in that Stolen Generation, and I'd like to share a little bit of sad story that we went through. My dad's now gone, and he was taken away to Beagle Bay, or Mullabula and Beagle Bay, and finding his roots now, growing up here in Fitzroy, I didn't know that I had Bunaba, Gija, and Jaru in me. But following my mother's side from the desert, Great Sandy Desert, today's story now, it's hard for us to track our dad's side story, because he's gone, he left us, and he was going through that grief as well, being taken away from his family in those younger days. And it was hard for us, but acknowledging family today, they're telling us all the connection we got on country of Bunaba, Gija, and Jaru land through our dad's side. And having people like Ngalo here, she always shared those stories with us and acknowledge us. And one thing good about Fitzroy, we got all those 5 language groups. Everyone's connected from one to another. And like Ngalo been saying, we've been married in country. And one thing, one strength here in Fitzroy Crossing is that keeping together as one. And that's given us a lot of strength, and we want a lot of young people to come out of that as leaders to carry on continuation of that connection for their families, no matter where you are. But there are a lot of other families who's not here today that we can cherish and feel what they're feeling, no matter where they are in Australia, that's been taken away from the Kimberleys. There's a lot of other families out there. But yeah. So today we'll open the floor for sharing time, and if anyone want to come up and share, that's been through that process in an early age. And if you have family members that's been through there, but you want to share something, please come up and share.
My name is Millie Hills. I'm here representing my mother, Maudie Bedford, alias Maudie Calvin. She's 94 years old. I brought her across from Horns Creek today. She was taken as a child from Calvin-Yada when she was 12 years old. Prior to that, she was with her mother, and she walked this country. She did a big full circle around Fitzroy Crossing. She never claimed Fitzroy Crossing as her home. She's always claimed Calvin-Yada as her home, and around Allendale, that was her country. She has ties to Walmajerry country. She has ties to Christmas Creek. Her stepfather, old Limerick, raised her. When she was born, her mother, seeing that she was a white kid and didn't want her, and threw in the Spinifex. I'm talking about your story, Mum. She's saying, oh, poor thing. That's your story, Mum. You know, old Limerick actually came back from out hunting, found you missing from the little humpy, and asked my grandmother Yogala, where's that little girl? And she said, I chucked her in the bushes so Dingo can have her. She a white one. And that's her there in grey hair, sitting in front here with a pink dress on. She reminded me of an Indian, actually. And anyway, that old man Limerick actually brought her in and said, nah, I'm going to look after this girl. This is my kid. I'll raise her. That's why the Walmajerry Darrow people claim her as theirs, because she was raised by old Limerick. She has a brother, Nibari, Uncle Barney Barnes. She got taken away at 12 years old, taken to Mullabulla. About 2 or 3 years later, Uncle Barney walked across to Mullabulla from somewhere around here, and told Mum that their mother had passed away. And when Mum got taken from Calvin-Yada, old Tom Woodland was the police officer, I think, at the time. He told my grandmother Yogala that he was taking my mum to Mullabulla for schooling, and she will be back for holidays. My mum got taken at 12 years old and never came back. And she raised 12 children, some of them at Mullabulla, the rest were in Horns Creek. I knew we had ties to Fitzroy. Every time I come to Fitzroy, I know I got family here. I feel like I've never left home, even though I was never born and raised here. Every time I come to Fitzroy, I feel like I've come home, because there's families here that welcome you. And we felt like we were part of this family. I don't claim Horns Creek as my home. I have Gidja connections through my father and Bunabet connections through my mother. My mom raised 12 children. We are all still alive today. Thanks to my mother's raising us. She was determined. She got taken away from my mother. She was determined that we would not get taken away from her. So she kept us all, and we're still here today. She's
indirectly connected to this whole issue of the stolen generation. But I'd encourage anybody, even the young ones, because there was a time when all of us young ones, we didn't know too. This story wasn't even told to anybody, and we all found out at different times in our lives. I'm sure some of the young ones, so I'd encourage you younger ones to get up and speak too. So I don't know a family that hasn't been touched by the stolen generation. And don't feel frightened to get up and talk, please. It's really important that people share these stories, and we got a lot of young ones here that might be hearing these stories for the first time. We got a lot of non-Indigenous people too, and thank you for coming. I'm not going to talk, but I'm lucky enough not to be taken from my mother, but I know I found out later that I've got family in Queensland. My family is originally from Northern Territory in Queensland, but I've learnt only about 3 or 4 years ago that I had a cousin sister that was taken from one of my aunties, and I didn't know that. And I've got other cousins that I've never met yet that were taken. So in a way, a lot of us were angry and really disappointed that this truth that all the families knew about the country wasn't ready to acknowledge it at that point in time. But thankfully, it's quite well known now, and artists like Archie Roach really raised the profile of that issue through his song and through his own journey and experience.
I was born at Billaloona around in 1950. When I grew up, my families, they walk out from Billaloona, took me up to Balgo, went walking across the desert, right across to Balgo. And when I was there, a priest used to come around the camp there, back at Balgo, looking for kids. So they found some of us there in the camp with our parents. Father came around picking us all out from the camp, and they took us up to dormitory. That's where I grew up. When I was older now, they gave us job there, working on the mission. At that time, in the 50s, we had no washing machine. Nothing. We did hand by washing for the mission and for the career people. We did a lot of washing, ironing by hand. No, thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Joy Nugget, and my mom is Amy Nugget. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge, the stolen generation, people that was taken away. But also, there's a different story for us. As it's a sorry story for us. Most of my people, my family, they came from the Great Sandy Desert. It's like what Bro said, Alan. It's uncivilized country. And we never knew that way out in the middle of nowhere that people lived there. Amongst the sand dunes, that's where they came from. They were very traditional. And most of our people they came into pastoral country because there might have been a drought way back in the early days. And some of our people died there. So some had to come into pastoral country. Some were placed in the stations, in the missions. And we've heard a lot of sad story from them because most of the family's been scattered, Some were taken away. The Cameleers who came and did stuff on the Canning Stock route, who were drilling wells. They had to kidnap some of our people because they knew the country. So they could identify with the wells, or the Gillas, they call them. We call them Gilla and Jumu. Because they knew their country. Some were taken away. Some were shot. And it's sad that when we were growing up, we've been hearing stories from our family that some of our mob got shot. And they were very traditional. They practiced their law and culture, their language. And there was 4 different language groups that lived on the Great Sandy Desert. There was the Walmageri, the Jualing, the Mangala, and the Wankajunka. And we're all family, because the languages are related. But those old people, they came in, they were placed in the mission. It was like stolen generation, but they had to teach them about Christianity. They've learned about God, even though it wasn't their God. They had their own religion and their customs. And later on in life, we sort of got our mob together. They got together and they painted a big canvas and they talked about the Great Sandy Desert. They knew their boundaries. They knew their little gills and water holes. They didn't cross over like anybody because they knew who belonged to where. And when we won our native title, we went back out onto a lake called Brinini Lake. And everybody was so happy that they were back on country. But most of our old people died. You can see the documentary on ICTV about our people. You know, most of our families, they're gone, who were artists in that time to put that canvas through for native title. And there's only a few of our artists are left, the old people. But it's like, for us, the younger generation, you know, even though we were happy to get our country back, but the system sort of failed us. You know, the government won't recognize our people's right to go back onto country. I mean, we can go back to country and do stuff on country, like looking after country and ranges, and, you know, sometimes my old girl go out, she participates with the ranger groups, and they go right back sometime into the middle, and which is good for her, you know.
Hello, everyone. We're the Carters, Lawfords, Forrests families, and we're here today to share our stories with you. For some of my family members, this is going to be very emotional. For our young people who are standing behind me, it'll be their first time of hearing the story and the impact that it's had on all of us. So first I'd like to hand the microphone over to my mum so that she can speak first, being my elder.
Salam nirang manana. Ngayu ang ngabulo. Kagarang mojang mingal gala. Mingal gala ngun kanya menjaya bawandi nyandu bawandi. All police station here, Kanimal Petroy. Right, wonder ne balunya ya bawandi jarlat. Ngayu bawandi. Pabajian ngabulo. Kanya balunya na. Una school gadi karena ilai orangnya ni kagara. Mola gadi. And najalat bin go Perth. And mom bin dilde all places in Kiranani. And dil mom dad and come from Jubilee. Pick him up him the old police station. Tell other people been telling us that your sister, Ivy Carter, and there are 3 brothers what been taken away. Till they haven't recognize us from all the people.
Yeah, hello, my name is Tom Lawford. Auntie saying, yes, he didn't know that he had his sister and brothers. They got taken away, went to school. Auntie went to Horse Creek, and other old fellows went down to Perth. But they still came back. They knew their heart is back here in this country. They're all here today in this country. My father and Gobde and the rest all here. Auntie and all sleep. But we're here. Our family, we're still here. We're here to take care of their name. Over Carter's name, Forrest's name, we're still here. We're not going nowhere, we're still here. Even though and they went away. They came back, but we're still here. We're not going nowhere. We will still be here. Thank you.
My name is Maureen Carter, and I'm going to talk about the removal of not only my mother, but also my father, and the impact that had on them and us, their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, nieces, nephew. You heard from my mother that Mum and her 3 brothers was taken to the old police station and they were separated. My mother was sent to Mullabulla and her 3 brothers was sent down to Moore River. They was taken down to Moore River on the ship from Derby. My father was removed from around Mabel Downs and Violet Valley. Both my parents were around the age of 8 years or 9. So both of them were sent to Mullabulla as children. And, you know, children were removed from their families, sent there, and those children were used as labour to build the dormitories so that they could have somewhere to sleep. And my mother's told me stories, and my father, you know, that the children were made to sleep under the houses of, you know, the people that were looking after them, because there wasn't anywhere for them to stay or live in. When my father was sent there, his name was Saturday. And I don't know why he was given that name, but in those days the managers had rights of naming Aboriginal children. But then when he went to the mission, they decided to change his name to George Carter. So that's the legacy that the Carter family carry of that day that my father was removed. My parents grew up on Mullabulla like many other children that had left, and they were married there, and there was 5 of us children that were born on the mission. And then in 1955, the government decided to sell Mullabulla Mission. Overnight, the people that bought the mission decided that they didn't want a mission anymore. They wanted to change it into a station. So a lot of us was put on trucks, the women and children, and because the new manager said they wanted all the women and children off the mission. So we were placed on trucks. We, I think, went and were camped at the Halls Creek race course. And then by truck we were sent here to the old mission. And I think, you know, that's when I think my mother was able to see her family that was here. But, you know, we were all given these caste names like half caste, full blood, quarter caste, all those things. And, you know, for their children growing up, at that time, we were impacted too. But one thing, my father thought that he was doing something that would be able to rid us of some of the assimilation policies that was in place by the government by applying for citizenship rights. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But on this document, it says, this document entitles the bearer to leave the reservation or mission at which they live to go to work. The additional benefits included walk freely through town without being arrested, and in brackets note curfews apply. Enter a shop or hotel, you may or may not be served at proprietor's discretion. Special conditions of that citizenship rights was speaking in native language prohibited. Engaging in dance, rituals, native customs prohibited. Associating with fellow Indigenous people, including family, prohibited. Assimilate into the wider community. If all conditions are met with a satisfactory upheld, you may also be eligible to live in town unsupervised. Note, strictly segregated housing areas. This is your chance to be free of the Aboriginal Protection Act and live like a white man. So those were the citizenship conditions that were placed on families. And growing up, when our family was sent to the mission here, it was some years before my father could come and pick us up. But I remember as a child, my father having to stop at each town and go into the police station to say where he was going. So, and also, you know, the fact that they weren't allowed to mix or talk to their family members. And growing up in Halls Creek in the 60s, and mind you, these are times that Aboriginal people weren't even considered citizens of this country. In Halls Creek, I know when it was time for myself, my two older brothers, we and my older sister, when we had to go to school in Halls Creek, because my sister was fairer than us, because in Halls Creek you had a black hostel and you had a white hostel. Me and my older brothers, because we were darker skinned than my sister who was fair, we were separated. My sister went to the white hostel and we went in to the black hostel. We went to school. The white kids played in the front, the black kids played in the back. and we see each other is when our father used to come to pick us up for the school holidays. And then we'd be all together as brothers and sisters. What I also wanted to say was, you know, as family of stolen generation, you know, we still hear those comments that are made to us about not being able to speak our language, not having our law and culture, not being born here, not being included to be able to take part and be a part of my grandmother and my mother's traditional country. We haven't been welcomed in, really, by our elders. But you know what? My family and my sisters and brothers, we came to Fitzroy because we wanted to get to know our people. We wanted to get to know where our country is. We wanted to make a difference to Fitzroy. That's why we've all come here and we all do the work that we do. And lastly, I just want to say is, I wouldn't change my life experience for anything, because you know what? That's made me the person that I am today. Thank you.
I'm Ngalo Nyanjili. I know people say, what for Nyanjili got to talk, but I want to tell a little story too. I had full blood parents. I know it's been a teary day today. We listen to stories, and I'm here now still, emotions going for all the people that told their stories. I was born down at the pub. My walari tree is still standing there. My midwife was Olnyawande. She was my mother, delivering me at that walari tree down the pub. I never been registered as being born on this country. But what I want to say is, I grew up down the pub with all old people. Walmajari people will all come across. People have been sharing Juluru tree there, Minyara. Nobody don't even think it was an important tree today with the younger generation. Me bala lililuan ulul bala inga they used to tell me, get away from there. Tari him up. Anamad me bala. There's a he's sitting up front, he can say all this. I'll just sitting down up front. We can't himself. I was here. Me and Ngambar mob, we used to go fishing there, Billabong, where biggest park, Yananga Warara, Karaolo Puri Flower. Kara cotton and shape divin, we've been stealing but from Kabi mob, get them but all a crab. Then it got to the stage where my father would run, all of but Juloro Garadilat, Walmajari people, Wango Junga people. My daddy and mom and Mibble and Mubla, Nanongali. Even take him. Some Walmajari brothers mine. Again, we will lose them la wheelchair, we even la belu. I got a Gulumbat name, like Chambala, where we will lose them. You will right? Kalgamara, we will have my father would take them. Kola Bonoba country, they would sit on. That's why I got all those wives there, mine, all the back, because that was all their husband. And they were my brothers. I would look at them. I would go to they would take away old Willie Bell from that station. They would shift me to the Derby Reserve. Balngara would come and get me as a half-caste child, put in the UAM, United Aborigines Mission there. I had my little two brothers, one sister. Little Fred was one of them. I don't know where he is today, because I would have loved him to come and stand with me here, because he had a lot of healing to do, my little brother. He was a nobody floating in the air. And still people ganging last for this place. We were put in that hostel. Christmas time, my sisters and brothers were allowed to go back down to the reserve for Christmas. I stayed in that mission milking goats with June Gregory, because she was another lost, stolen generation child. We milked the goats. We never seen Christmas. And then things were happening on that Derby reserve. So the welfare decided to separate me and my brothers and sisters. It was Margaret and Fred. Everybody know little Fred. He was only about 5 years old. They put them on the big loading truck in those days. They would bring about all the loading here for mission, must be all the taga and everything. And I would say that welfare, then put me on Malngara called Kevin Johnson. He was the superintendent at that time. That's where their titles. I can't stop here to follow my dad, I would say. You can't go. You're now at that age where you have to work for yourself. My brothers and sisters left to come to Fitzroy, to this mission. And my dad jumped on that big loading truck. To this day, every time I tell this story, I cry. Because it was little Fred, Margaret, and my other brother. They just put them on that big loading truck. My father been waving and crying for me, and I was crying too. A couple of weeks after, the welfare said to me, there's a job in Halls Creek. And I've been thinking to myself, I got to go through Fitzroy. I might jump off let Malngara when we go through. This road didn't have bitumen. They drove me through this road here on gravel road, 12 o'clock at night, so I wouldn't find my way to run away to my father and my sisters and brothers. They drove me to Halls Creek. We got in there 3 o'clock in the morning. I was crying through here. This was all gravel. I went to Halls Creek, and that's where I was planted. And I was lucky. I was thinking, I would still have my language then. And I was lucky I would go work for welfare. That's when I would come across Marambal. That's Walwayamop, grandmother. She would still have Bunuba. You know what? If it wasn't for people like that who didn't have that language, I probably wouldn't know my language. I used to go to Marambal, take them but ration them. That was my job. Looking after the old people. Welfare used to get them pension money, let them. We will do shopping. And I would go one time. Hey, no one thing you working gate. Hey, I would say, Dita, what is Wolgaman? Who did you think? This Wolgaman dog and Bonobolami. And it was Walway's grandmother. You know, I ask some young people these days, I'm saying, you will know Marambal? No, you're not from here. But I can, as I'm standing here, she kept my language up with all. Another one, Olgaman, Kobat Bumada. People at 3 used to try to talk Bonoba. I used to miss it a bit. And if it wasn't for them old people, I wouldn't be still standing here. I wouldn't know my language. We would come back like country, we would walk this country here. And people still say, hey, you will get back to your own country. But I tell you, my heart's in this country. And that's how my grandchildren and my children feel. So don't do that, because part of healing, we have to get accepted. And we were part of this country. So I just like to close. Walwayamop, I tell you this story all the time for Marambal. Same goes there, because young people these days don't. And I'm lucky to be standing here as a 67-year-old lady, because I knew the old people that went through here, and I've been with them. And some people don't, younger people say, nah, we don't know, they not belong to this tribe or whatever. But we got to pass this down so our children can still get up here 20 years' time and tell this story. Tell this story, because of all the things that are happening around us, fighting for country, fighting for greed, because our people never do that. We would all mix, one tribe, one voice we had in those days. Thank you.
Come in, May. Aralja. People know me everywhere, because I've been work in a money place after. Prado, and I say, I'm from Great Mace Creek, on that civil generation. They've been dig me everybody. But I went more personal, more long way. I went to go to Pickle Bay, schooling there. My mother, my brothers, uncle, have been still alive in Christmas Creek, Wangajunga. Yep, very hard thing. You know, they would put me got a big army truck to cross the river here, Old Bridge, on that day. And one bloke, station manager, find me there and take me to Mida. Karukwa Jarway, Karkwas, Kaili, Europlana Road. Ugala, I was crying now for mommy, uncle, and all my brothers crying there. Very sad thing. Putting up, only a Sunday up. Purguburu, all my mop. Touch it black, Jambram, yeah, all that Fujman, all my boss. I would really cry for this mob now. Well known, lower man and businessman. Sad thing. 3 brothers I got them there. Kendi, Ora, Mabam, Uwala, brother. I've been rebel myself. Till I lost people, my life. But I've been good man. From all that thing, when we been working in Tanzania, you know, one day, come and close that job. Now ringing in a stage now. Finish. Now job. You better go rejob now. Stay in here now. Come and grow. Here. Pay on that. Konagi. Now more job in a stage. Very sad thing. How we can go? Manyanji, Lipton Block. He has me. You wanna come? We give you a job in Michin. Driving that one truck, Michin truck, red one. Car and motor, whatever you want. Yeah, whatever. Come. Come and get a job there. Good job, yeah. Work all my life there in Michin. We built that guy. I change your ability. Hold that job now. I haven't worked there for a long time. Okay, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for coming. And I'd like to thank all the guest speakers. I know it's real hard to get up here and talk and talk about your journey, past journey, and what your family been go through. And yeah, I want to acknowledge that for all the speakers who have been come up and all the other ones that are sitting down and still thinking. But and also our cooking staff, Turtle and Libby, and also Nilalangari, Manda, with your team doing the salads. Thank you, and Maureen. So today was like that special day, and for everyone to come together and just chuck away all work and thing for today. It was worthwhile being here, you know, just for a couple of hours and share those stories. And I think Fitzroy should do more of this. And yeah, like I said, thank you, Mabol, for coming, and all the staff at Mara as well, and Nilalangari.
This story's right, this story's true. I would not tell lies to you, like the promise said.